Hey, this is Sreehari from Mr. Phone, and today I am in front of you with a video that you guys have been requesting a lot, and that is the Vivo Z1Pro versus I don't know what phone that is. That is the Realme 3 Pro and the Redmi Note 7 Pro. So these are the three phones that you guys have been requesting a lot for us to compare, and in this video, as you guys asked, we're gonna do a detailed Mr. Phone style classic camera comparison. So what's the wait? Let's get into the video. Before jumping into the video, of course, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon because we're gonna put out a lot of such videos on the channel. And as you saw, you guys requested a video, we put it up. So you can go down in the comment section and request the videos that you want because we are here for you. Now, before jumping in the camera comparison, here is a spec sheet, the camera spec sheet for all three phones. Take a look at the camera specs and then we can move forward. But I don't think I'm gonna wait. You can pause the video and watch this, but I'm gonna move ahead with the camera comparison. Now, first coming to the close-up shots, let's take a look at this image of a broom. It might not be the most elegant of shots, but it's quite a good shot to take a look at all the details and the colors in the image. And the first thing that comes out and strikes out is the color on the Redmi Note 7 Pro, because that is actually the closest to what the color looked like in real life. It is still a little pinkish, but it is still the closest to what it actually looked like. Coming to the Realme, it's slightly yellowish, and this warm tone is something we'll see in almost all Realme images in this video, but it is slightly warmer than I would have liked. The Vivo Z1 Pro's color tone is closer to what the Redmi Note 7 Pro was, but it's a little overexposed. So without zooming in, I think I'd go Redmi, Realme and Z1 Pro. Now let's zoom in, and zooming in, the Redmi Note 7 Pro is simply phenomenal. That 48 megapixel camera does do wonders to this. The Realme 3 Pro is not bad at all. You can see similar kind of details on the Realme 3 Pro. The Vivo Z1 Pro zooming in clearly shows us that there is a lot of over sharpening going on in that image, and that overexposure is even more clear right now. Now, apart from that, Redmi has also been able to get focus on almost all areas of the image, which is something that the Z1 Pro is especially struggling with. The Realme is actually closer to what the Redmi Note 7 Pro is like. So in this daylight close-up image, I'll go with the Redmi Note 7 Pro, followed by the Realme 3 Pro and the Vivo Z1 Pro. Now let's move to the second daylight close-up image. What we see here is that the Redmi Note 7 Pro, which actually came first in the last round, has not been able to do justice to the color of the flower, because here it has made that color almost pink, and there are areas where there is a lot of color bleeding happening. The Realme 3 Pro has actually done a great job of retrieving the color of the flower. While there are still boosted colors on it, it's still boosted in the same tone that the flower was, rather than going the pink route which the Redmi has done. The Vivo Z1 Pro is actually the closest to how the flower actually looked. It's very similar to the Realme 3 Pro as well. So I think the Realme 3 Pro and the Z1 Pro have done phenomenally in the color department. The details on the Z1 Pro are actually slightly better. There is still over sharpening, but there are still slightly better than the Realme 3 Pro. The Realme 3 Pro, like the previous image, is still warmer in color. So I think for this image, I'd go with Z1 Pro, followed by the Realme 3 Pro and the Redmi Note 7 Pro. So in the end, in daylight close-up, all three phones have actually gotten 4 points, but the more consistent one is the Realme 3 Pro, I guess, because it got 2 points in both rounds. Now let's move to daylight wide image. Daylight wide is one of our favorite shots because that shot tells us a lot about how the image looks, how the quality is. And looking at the daylight wide shot, there is a clear distinction between the three phones. The Realme 3 Pro has good exposure, but goes completely overboard with color. The Redmi does control the color well, but looks a bit underexposed in a lot of areas. The Z1 Pro has actually managed to click a great image here, and almost all areas have been exposed well. So what I'll say is that without zooming in, the Z1 Pro will be my favorite image, followed by the Redmi Note 7 Pro and the Realme 3 Pro. I think the one thing Realme 3 Pro could have done is slightly get the colors a little down, because it's too boosted, and there is a color boost mode as well. So this is without color boost. So with color boost, it'll go even more overboard with the color. So I think for users, they could have gone with slightly less color on the image. Now, zooming in, the Redmi Note 7 Pro is just oozing with details, and it's a sight to see. The 48 megapixel sensor does wonders, as I said. If you look, for example, to the right of the barricades, to the right side, to the direction boards as well, the Z1 Pro and the Realme have done good job. They're crisp images, but the Redmi Note 7 Pro blows them out of the water. This is more noticeable if you look at the boards behind that, where there is text written on the blue boards. The Redmi is just crisp. Also, I think that Realme doesn't handle yellows well, probably also because it's already trying to warm the image up like other images images we saw previously. So the yellow on the barricades is somewhat similar to what the Redmi Note 7 Pro and the Z1 Pro have produced, but the Realme 3 Pro goes almost neon with that yellow, which also seeps into the entire image and makes it look warmer. The corner to corner details are actually quite good on all three phones, which is something we could not have expected to see under 20,000 phones, but the corner to corner details are pretty good in all three phones. But because of the overall image, I'll go with the Redmi Note 7 Pro followed by the Z1 Pro and the Realme 3 Pro. Now coming to portrait mode pictures have been getting better and better with time, and today, as we can see, even budget phones have gotten pretty good at them. Now let's get into the nitpicking mode, shall we? Starting with the Z1 Pro, the face tone is slightly yellowish. This is something that Realme used to do, but the Z1 Pro is slightly yellowish on the face and feels a little unnatural. That said, the bokeh looks quite good. The Redmi Note 7 Pro, while has a similar depth of field, the face tone is very good. The slight pinkish tone to the face does go well with the light brown skin tone, and that lifts the entire look as well. The Realme 3 Pro also went this pinkish route, but just went to pink or red on the face, which makes it look too beautified. It's almost like the OnePlus 60, if I may. It uses the exact same sensor, the Sony sensor that OnePlus 60 used, and the pictures, although there's no correlation to that, but the pictures still look to be made in a similar way. Now, if you are someone who likes that kind of pictures, then the Realme 3 Pro is a good option for you. That said, the bokeh is the most shallow here. For people who like that deep DSLR bokeh, then this is a good choice. I myself would have liked something that is in between the Redmi Note 7 Pro and the Realme 3 Pro. Going to details, the Z1 Pro and the Redmi Note 7 Pro have done quite an amount of over-sharpening, where the Realme went with natural details. Now, I picked the Redmi Note 7 Pro, and here's why. Redmi has managed to strike the perfect balance between what the Realme is doing and what the Vivo phone is doing. The Z1 Pro goes overboard with over-sharpening, where the software sharpening does what the Pixel does, but I guess Google's vast database of images have given them a better idea of what human skin texture looks like. The Z1 Pro looks quite sharp, and if you don't zoom in, you might actually like it a lot. Then we go to the Realme 3 Pro, which uses natural details, which is something us reviewers like a lot, but it only looks good to a general consumer if there is enough natural details in the image. The Redmi strikes a balance, and even though the sensor has 48 megapixels to spare, Xiaomi uses a touch of over-sharpening to make the image look sharper, and I think that's how it should be. Striking a balance is what we need. Coming to selfies, all of them look good. The blue color on my shirt has been brought out almost too well on the Realme, but the others have decided to go subtle on it. I prefer the Realme since it's closer to what the shirt actually looks like. Going into details as well, the Realme has clicked a great selfie. The natural details here are really appealing, and just look at those shirt details. It's just awesome, and the Redmi Note 7 Pro and the Z1 Pro don't even come close. The Redmi has done a great job too, but the shirt is a little overexposed. That said, the face details are pretty good on both the Redmi and the Z1 Pro, so I think I'll go with Realme and give second spot to both the Vivo Z1 Pro and the Redmi Note 7 Pro. Coming to selfie portrait, now since we've taken a look at the selfies, we'll only take a look at the bokeh quality, and the cutout is actually quite good on all three phones. The Vivo Z1 Pro is a little more inconsistent with the bokeh and with the edge cutout compared to the Redmi and the Realme. The Redmi and Realme are actually quite close. There are a few areas where the Realme has actually blurred out parts of the subject. That's happened in the Redmi also, but there are more areas on the Realme that have been blurred out, which is why I think I'll pick the Redmi very closely followed by the Realme 3 Pro and then the Z1 Pro in the last spot. Now talking about HDR, we only take a look at HDR shots and not the non-HDR shots because we want to see what the effect looks like in the end. Now talking about it, the Redmi Note 7 Pro goes subtle like always, and this time it works. All the areas have been exposed well and there's details across the image. The Realme, while does the clouds very well, it goes too overboard with the color and that doesn't look good to me. See, when doing HDR, the thing is to tweak the highlights and the shadows, not the colors, and that is what Realme has done. Boosting the colors is something that I'm sure a lot of people like, so that is not something I can comment on. If people like boosted colors, then so be it, but for me as a reviewer, I think I prefer slightly toned down images, which is why I like the Redmi Note 7 Pro's image. That said, there is a dark horse here, and that is the Realme 3 Pro's non-HDR image. The non-HDR image from the Realme 3 Pro, I mean without any effect, without any HDR, actually looks the best even compared to HDR images from other phones. So I think the highlight performance, the HDR performance on the Realme 3 Pro, which we already knew was good, is actually good, is even better than the HDR images of other phones. But if we talk solely about the HDR HDR effect, then I think Realme is going overboard with the color. The Z1 Pro is a little underexposed though. In this image, I think I'll go with the Redmi Note 7 Pro followed by the Z1 Pro and the Realme 3 Pro. That's it for people, as I said, who have the Realme 3 Pro or maybe are looking to buy it. It's already great with HDR, so by default, so there's no worrying about that. Coming to low light, looking at these images, all three have done a commendable job. That being said, the Realme 3 Pro does take a slightly better looking picture compared to the other two. You can clearly see the JMD board is much better looking on the Realme 3 Pro. That said, the difference is not as dramatic. But talking about dramatic, let's turn on night modes on all three phones. And now we have elements to analyze. The Redmi Note 7 Pro seems to have done a very good job with the JMD logo, where it's exposed and is soft to avoid any noise. But this softness is also seeped into a few other areas of the image. That said, I think overall the Redmi Note 7 Pro has done a phenomenal job with the night mode. Again, very closely followed by the Realme 3 Pro. The Realme 3 Pro has actually preferred keeping the noise in order to keep the details, which is also something which is quite good in a few situations. That could be the better thing to do. But here, I think the Realme 3 Pro could have gone slightly softer. The Z1 Pro actually sits in between both these images. That said, I think what I'll go with, since the night mode specifically on the Redmi Note 7 Pro is good, I'll go with the Redmi Note 7 Pro followed by the Realme 3 Pro and the vivo Z1 Pro in the same spot. Now coming to low light selfie, the Redmi Note 7 Pro's image looks kinda dark. The Z1 Pro does a great job by bringing out more light in the face, but the king here is the Realme 3 Pro. That phone is just a beast in low light. The selfie looks like there's flash being used. The colors are right, the details are there too. Now turning on flash, the Redmi suddenly comes out on top purely because of the algorithm and a natural yellow-white screen flash that they use. The light has also been spread evenly across my face, which makes it quite good looking. The Realme 3 Pro, while did a tremendous job with the low light selfie, the flash wasn't even distributed evenly across the face. On the Vivo though, while the flash was distributed well, the face doesn't look too natural. As I keep the Realme and the Vivo at the same spot, that said, I think when it comes to low light selfies, the Realme 3 Pro is a clear winner. Now let's finally move on to the videos, and we have three videos to take a look at. First is the rear video at 4K. Now talking about that rear video from 4K, I think all three phones have done a tremendous job. Even shooting 4K for a phone under 20,000 was something we could not expect a few years ago, but now we have phones shooting great 4K footage under 20,000. Now, I think it's a given that none of these phones have stabilization at 4K 30 FPS. That said, I think talking about the image quality, the Realme 3 Pro has done a phenomenal job. I think it's the best image quality in these three phones when it comes to that 4K footage. The face tones, the color of the shirt, the exposure handling. The exposure handling is phenomenal. The audio though is not very impressive.
Hey, this is Sreehari from Mr. Phone, and right now we're shooting 4K footage at 30. Let me know what you think of the audio, the video quality, the stabilization, of course. As I pan around, you'll see as the light falls behind me. Let's see how the exposure is being handled by.
The image quality, the Realme 3 Pro has done a phenomenal job. I think it's the best image quality in these three phones when it comes to that 4K footage. The face tones, the color of the shirt, the exposure handling. The exposure handling is phenomenal. The audio though is not very impressive. The Redmi Note 7 Pro is kind of the same with the image quality. Exposure is something it is struggling with. There are some inconsistencies happening with the exposure. That said, the reason why the Redmi Note 7 Pro fails in this video comparison is because of the instability with video recording. It's just choppy video coming out of the Redmi Note 7 Pro. We have talked about this a lot. I think this is an issue that has been escalated quite a lot online. So I'm sure this is out there and then Xiaomi knows it. We'll be fixing it soon. But as of now, the Redmi is quite bad with video recording. Until the point it's fixed, I can't recommend a Redmi Note 7 Pro for video recording. Now finally we come to the vivo Z1 Pro, and the Vivo also does a great job with the image quality as well. It's a little saturated and also gets underexposed when there is bright light behind me. So for this 4K comparison, I'll go with the Realme 3 Pro at number 1 spot, the Vivo Z1 Pro at the number 2 spot, and the Redmi Note 7 Pro at the number 3 spot. Now let's move to the 1080p footages at 30 FPS, and here I think coming to the image quality, it's the same thing. The Realme 3 Pro is amazing. The Redmi Note 7 Pro is also actually very close to the Realme 3 Pro, almost as good, and maybe you like the Redmi Note 7 Pro here. That's alright. The Redmi Note 7 Pro and the Realme 3 Pro are almost similar when it comes to image quality. The Vivo, as I said, is saturated for 4K, is also slightly more saturated here and gets underexposed when there is light behind. Exposure again is inconsistent with the Redmi Note 7 Pro, also when there is change in light, dramatic change in light. The Realme 3 Pro handles it beautifully. When it comes to stabilization, I think the Vivo Z1 Pro has done the best job in stabilization in the three phones. That said, the Realme 3 Pro is not too far behind. The Redmi Stabilization is good and all, but again the video is choppy and unstable, so the Redmi easily gets the last spot. The Vivo Z1 Pro also has great audio quality as well, but I think because the Realme has better image quality and in a video that matters a lot, I think I'll go with the Realme 3 Pro, followed by the Vivo Z1 Pro, and in the end the Redmi Note 7 Pro. Now let's move to the selfie videos. And coming to the selfie videos, I think the Redmi Note 7 Pro and the Realme 3 Pro both have done a great job. The color of the shirt is something that I can see clearly here has been brought out better by the Realme 3 Pro, and it's a little wheatish on the Redmi Note 7 Pro and the Vivo Z1 Pro. Apart from that, I think the audio quality is good on all three. The Redmi is the best when it comes to audio quality, something that they have been known for. They're using a very good microphone. Now here the video is not choppy, hence I think the Redmi Note 7 Pro's face tones and the Redmi Note 7 Pro's audio, which is very important when it comes to selfie video at least, makes it number one for me, followed by the Realme 3 Pro and then the Vivo Z1 Pro. In the end, the Redmi Note 7 Pro still comes out on top, and that is, I think, because of the phenomenal lens quality that the Redmi Note 7 Pro uses. The Sony IMX586 sensor is not supposed to be in a phone under 20,000 honestly, and it is there in the Redmi Note 7 Pro. Clearly one of the biggest reasons, because things like lens distortion, things like corner to corner details, things like the natural details in the image are all mainly a function of the sensor and the ISP, and I think the sensor on the Redmi Note 7 Pro does take it for me. Then the second thing is the post-processing that Xiaomi does on a lot of their images. Xiaomi has been doing cameras well. This is a known fact. They've been doing it for longer and they've been doing it well for a long time, and I think they've nailed it. That said, there are still inconsistencies in the video side of it. So if you're someone who takes a lot of wide images, someone who takes a lot of portraits and pictures of people, then the Redmi Note 7 Pro is the choice for you. Then let's go to the Realme 3 Pro, because with the Realme 3 Pro, you have one of the best selfie performances under 20,000. The Realme 3 Pro's daylight selfies and then the low light selfies. The low light selfies are just crazy. Compare it even to a flagship and you'll find that the Realme 3 Pro's low light selfie performance is just something you cannot expect to have in a phone under 20,000. So I think with the selfie performance, with the video performance as well, and the dynamic range performance. Realme 2 Pro struggled with dynamic range, we all know that, but the Realme 3 Pro has just gone leaps and bounds ahead and got a device that is just phenomenal when it comes to dynamic range. So I think selfies, videos, and dynamic range performance, the Realme 3 Pro is unbeatable. Now finally we come to the Vivo Z1 Pro, and while the Z1 Pro has actually scored the lowest in this camera comparison, it is still a great camera. See, the Redmi Note 7 Pro and the Realme 3 Pro are exceptional cameras, and the way these companies are working on the software of these cameras, constantly improving it, it is quite difficult to keep up. But the fact that you get a camera that's very close to the Realme 3 Pro and the Redmi Note 7 Pro, but while still getting the other things that you get with the Vivo Z1 Pro, like the great display, the big display and everything, I think the Vivo Z1 Pro is a great device as well. Now where the Vivo Z1 Pro shines compared to the Realme and the Redmi is not necessarily in a lot of image quality, but I think the versatility that you get with the camera app. The most feature-packed camera app is the one that the Vivo Z1 Pro has. It is also one of the easiest to use, so that is something that is quite difficult to strike a balance with. Either you put a lot of features and it becomes not very easy to use, or you don't put a lot of features but then you don't have features. The Vivo Z1 Pro actually does a great job. Vivo's camera app has improved a lot over the years, so if you want features stuffed on your phone like 7 different portrait modes and the same portrait modes on selfie, you have a manual mode, you have AI scene detection, you have AI framing, AI portrait framing, and then the extensive beauty mode, which you'll have to do a PhD to understand how to use. So I think that is where the Vivo Z1 Pro shines as well. And with that, I leave it to it. Thank you so much for watching this comparison. Let me know what you thought of this in the comment section below. But I think with that, thank you so much for watching. This is Sreehari from Mr. Phone with these 3 beautiful phones, any of which you'll be quite happy with if you buy. And I'll catch you in the next one.